Welcome back to Disturbed Reality. Today's topic covers a brutal but old school cartel execution perpetrated against Cartel Jalisco Nueva Generacion, aka CJNG. The video was released in around 2013 to 2014, and the group responsible go by the name of Los Aliados de Jalisco, a small but violent criminal organisation. But I'll get into that a little later. The reason why I find it appropriate to cover a CJNG case is because of the developments and rumours in the narco world surrounding CJNG, and in particular their leader El Mencho, aka Nemesio Oseguera Cervantes, the man who went from abject poverty to running one of the largest and most brutal criminal organisations ever seen in Mexico and beyond. Nemesio was born in July 1966 in the rural community of Naranjo de Chila in Aguililla, Michoacán. Several sources cite that his birth name was actually Ruben, but then he changed it to Nemesio in memory of his godfather. He is commonly known by his alias El Mencho, a nickname that derives from the phonetic derivation of Nemesio. Another less common nickname that he goes by is the Lord of the Roosters, said to be derived from his love for cockfighting. In fact, it's said that he gambles heavily on these fights, sometimes up to $100,000 each time. Nemesio grew up in a poverty-stricken family that cultivated avocados. He had 5 brothers, Juan, Miguel, Antonio, Marin and Abraham. He dropped out of primary school in the 5th grade to work in the fields and help out his family. Money was tight, and school was a luxury in which his family couldn't afford, so Nemesio was put to work. He soon realised that the back-breaking task of agriculture was no way to rise out of poverty. At 14 years old, Nemesio took his first steps into the criminal underworld. He started guarding marijuana plantations for local drug pushers. After a few years, Nemesio saved enough money to illegally emigrate to the USA, with dreams of making it big in the criminal underworld. In 1986, Nemesio lived in the Bay Area of San Francisco. He was then arrested by the San Francisco police at the age of 19 for stolen property and carrying a loaded gun. At this time, it's believed that Nemesio had become involved in meth production and distribution in Redwood City, California, alongside his future stepbrother, Abigail Gonzalez Valencia, aka El Queenie. In 1989, El Mencho was arrested once again in San Francisco for selling narcotics. He was then subsequently deported back to Mexico a few months later, but soon re-entered the US and once again resettled in San Francisco. 1992 would prove to be a tough year for Nemesio. In September of that year, he was arrested once again, this time on federal drug charges in Sacramento, California. According to court reports, El Mencho and his brother Abraham were at a bar in San Francisco known as Imperial to carry out a heroin deal. Abraham was in charge of the deal, whereas El Mencho acted as a lookout. Despite Nemesio being much younger than his brother Abraham, he was savvy enough to recognise that the transaction was a setup by the police. He allegedly told his brother that the men who they gave the heroin to handed over perfectly stacked dollar bills instead of loose ones. Using a wiretap, the police overheard El Mencho warning his brother never to do business with them again since they were undercover cops. 3 weeks after the deal, both men were arrested by police. In court, Nemesio insisted he was innocent. He said that he was not involved in the heroin deal and that the undercover agents were lying about him handling the drugs. The prosecution insisted that both siblings were working together and knew the full extent of what they were doing. You would be forgiven for thinking that this would be the end for the two brothers. Nemesio in particular was left with a difficult decision. If he pleaded not guilty, his brother Abraham, who already had felony drug sentences on his record, would more than likely face life in prison. In order to protect his brother from life imprisonment, Nemesio decided to plead guilty. He was subsequently sentenced to 5 years in prison at the Big Spring Correctional Center in Texas, which houses a large number of illegal immigrants. After serving 3 years, he was released from prison on parole and subsequently was deported back to Mexico at the age of 30. Once back in Mexico, he decided against moving back to his home state of Michoacan. Instead, he relocated to the state of Jalisco. Once in Jalisco, it appeared that Nemesio was trying to live straight. He actually got a job and joined the local police forces of Cabo Corrientes and Tomatlan. He worked for the Jalisco State Police Force for a couple of years. However, he soon relocated back to his home state of Michoacan to resume his criminal career. Due to Nemesio's close relationship with Abigail Valencia, which only grew stronger when Nemesio married Abigail's sister, Rosalinda, he soon joined the Michoacan-based Millennial Cartel, a cartel which was run by the Valencia family, so once again, Nemesio had his foot back into organised crime. The Millennial Cartel during the 1990s were the most powerful criminal organisation in the state of Michoacan. They had the most territory and the key drug routes in the state. During the early stages of Nemesio's criminal career with the Millennial Cartel, it said that he was a sicario, but soon after he was entrusted to run his own hit squad within the Millennial organisation. Due to his ruthless efficiency, he impressed his higher-ups within the Millennial Cartel. Despite the organisation's great success in the 1990s, the first decade of a new millennium would prove to be extremely difficult for the Millennial Cartel. However, it was a turning point in the narco world. Truth be told, the early 2000s started terribly for the Millennial organisation. They was under extreme scrutiny by the government and local law enforcement, which led to the capture of their leader, Armando Valencia. Also at this time, Michoacan was proving to be a battleground. The Gulf Cartel were vying for the territory and targeted Millennial Cartel members. They sent down their infamous Los Zetas hit squads to kill as many Millennials as possible. Due to the increasing pressure of law enforcement and due to the war with the Golfos, the Millennial Cartel were essentially chased out of Michoacan. In 2003, Oscar Nava Valencia took control of the Millennial Cartel and he formed an alliance with Sinaloa, in particular with Nacho Coronel, who was a leader of the Sinaloa cartel at the time. After their exile from Michoacan, the Millennial Cartel had essentially lost all of their drug routes, and the partnership with Sinaloa basically enabled them to use Sinaloa drug routes that had already been established. Of course, the Sinaloa cartel would take most of the profits. This solution lasted a few years until October 28, 2009, when Oscar Nava Valencia was captured by the Mexican army. Shortly after this, in 2010, Sinaloa kingpin Nacho Coronel was shot in the head in Jalisco during a shootout with the Mexican army. So at this point, Millennial had lost their leader and lost their main connection with the Sinaloa cartel. This created a huge power vacuum within the Millennial organisation. It resulted in two men vying for power, those being Ramiro Pozos, aka El Mocha, and Nemesio Oseguera Cervantes, aka El Mencho. The remnants of the Valencia family had nominated Nemesio to take charge. However, others within the organisation wanted Ramiro to take control. It said that Ramiro wanted to break away from the Sinaloa Foundation and be more independent. No agreement could be reached between Nemesio and Ramiro, which led to the creation of two groups within the organisation vying for power, La Resistencia being headed by Ramiro and Los Torquidos being headed by Nemesio. Los Torquidos meaning the Twisted Ones in English. A brutal war ensued, which was eventually won by Nemesio's men. Los Torquidos basically had more support within the old Millennial organisation, they had the greater firepower, and crucially, they actually had support from Sinaloa. Los Torquidos would take the old Millennial territory and would then rebrand as Cartel Jalisco Nueva Generacion, aka CJNG, that we all know today. The cartel went from strength to strength, and in their first year, they already had set up a coast-to-coast operation in Mexico. As the years passed, their influence grew. They gained more territory, including key port locations, enabling them to smuggle in fentanyl from China, giving them an advantage over their competition, and most notably, during their initial years, they soon garnered the reputation of being the most brutal drug cartel in the whole of Mexico. El Mencho had managed to turn the remnants of the Millennial cartel into one of the most brutal and most successful drug cartels in the world today. What really separates El Mencho from other cartel leaders is that he truly does operate in the shadows. In fact, he's very often referred to as the Ghost. He doesn't chase fame or attention, merely just money and power. He's never seen in public, neither does he attend grandiose parties. In fact, there's only 4 or 5 images of El Mencho online, no video footage of him exists, and ultimately, the only real leak featuring El Mencho was a phone call that he made to the police, where he threatened them for stifling his operations. You can listen to the recording on YouTube with translations, and it's chilling. It's definitely worth a listen. Despite El Mencho's lack of public presence, he's managed to create a cult of personality among his organisation, leading to fierce loyalty from the CJNG members, and in turn, creating one of the most violent cartels in modern history. In recent weeks, however, speculation surrounding El Mencho has been rife. In recent weeks, rumours have circulated social media and various narco websites that El Mencho is no more, allegedly dying in a private medical facility in Jalisco. Now, it is worth mentioning that in the past, there have been numerous El Mencho death rumours, all of which proved to be fake in the long run. This may be another one of those situations because no authority figures in Mexico have confirmed the death of El Mencho, so he may very well still be alive. In fact, it really wouldn't surprise me if these rumours were put out deliberately to try and take some heat off El Mencho. Time will tell. I have tried to do a bit of research to try and find some information collaborating these death rumours, and the best I could find is the following, and it surrounds the small western state of Colima. Colima is a state controlled by CJNG, but recently, a new cartel in the state made its presence known. They go by the names of Los Mezcales or the Independent Colima Cartel. The organisation is led by drug trafficker Jose Bernabe Brizuela Meraz, aka La Vaca. Interestingly, La Vaca and his group of assassins previously worked for CJNG in Colima, but in recent times they broke away and formed their own organisation. In recent weeks, El Vaca left a public statement detailing his plan for the state of Colima. He wants to take the state from CJNG. The note roughly translates as the following: Julio Alberto Castillo Rodriguez and Miguel Angel Joaquin, they are purely killing innocent people because the one who was killed in Lerdo and the one from La Aberrada did not work for us. You're fucking killing innocent people. It's not the fault of the normal people. The fight is with us, arseholes. We hit you and don't get involved with innocent people. There you look at the pure weakness that they have, and that's how they want to fight. Send me double R to fight, since you are fucking pussies. As for me here, we're going to continue fighting, and I'm going to take away the state of Colima, and you, the government, do not side with them. They are traitors and they only use people. Mencho has already died. Let's see, who's seen Mencho? Check the letters from Mencho. It's no longer the same handwriting anymore. I say it because they changed the writing on mine. Think about it, everyone that gets these letters. So essentially what La Vaca is referring to in regards to El Mencho, very often these high-up cartel members will actually use handwritten notes to instruct their operatives, and I guess La Vaca, when he was working with CJNG, he saw these notes and he realised or he felt that the handwriting has changed, leading him to believe that El Mencho is indeed dead. And interestingly, in the last few weeks and months since the emergence of the Colima cartel, there has been a spike of violence in that state. It will be interesting to see if any content comes out of that part of Mexico. time will tell. But in regards to El Mencho, is he dead? Is he alive? Does it really matter? We shall see. But nevertheless, let's get into the gore segments of the video. The video itself is around 12 minutes long, and the very first thing that struck me in regards to this video was the camera quality. Bear in mind this video is nearly 10 years old now, and given the nature of most cartel executions, the camera quality is actually quite good, especially comparing it to videos at the time. The video opens up and you see two men dressed in all black wearing ski masks, and the setting is a very small room. In that room is a folding wooden ladder, and in between that ladder, a naked man has been hung upside down from his feet. Both his mouth and his eyes have been duct taped. Loud Spanish music is blaring in the background, and this is where the violence ensues. One of the cartel members takes a handsaw and starts sawing at the victim's throat. Immediately, a large puddle of blood collects on the ground. As the cartel member is sawing at the victim's throat, you can hear the victim attempt to take large gasps of air, which creates a horrible sound. As this is happening, you can see the victim's diaphragm violently inflate and deflate as he's trying to cling on to life. As the hacksaw cuts deeper into the victim's throat, the gasps for air get louder and louder. Around 1 minute into the video, the cartel member who's doing the beheading reaches the spine of the victim, and at this point, the victim's body spasms and tenses up as the saw is cutting into the spine and touching the nerves. At this point, the victim stops breathing. The beheading is then soon completed. The man doing the beheading picks up the head and holds it up to the camera. At this point, a third cartel member carrying what appears to be an M16 appears in the shot. His colleague then picks up the handsaw and continues with the dismemberment. At this point, a huge puddle of blood has collected on the floor, almost covering the whole room. The cartel member carrying the handsaw then dismembers the victim's arms at the shoulders, and despite the music blaring in the background, you can hear the blade on bone sound. All throughout this segment, the victim's bloody severed head is held up to the camera. Once the arms have been dismembered, the man holding the head puts it down and takes the handsaw from his colleague. He then dismembers the mutilated corpse's right leg. It takes him a while to complete the process, but he eventually does. He then hands the hacksaw over to his colleague, who then completes the process and dismembers the left leg, leaving the bloody torso to fall on the ground, with the dismembered legs still hanging on the ladder. At this point, one of the cartel members stomps on the severed torso, leaving a bloody footprint on it. The camera then pans to the floor, showing the body parts, and the room is a bloody mess. A huge pool of blood is on the floor, and bloody splatters are sprayed up the walls. One of the cartel members then picks up the head for a final time and holds it up to the cameras, and that is where the video ends. It's an extremely bloody and visceral video, made worse by the fact that the camera quality is actually pretty good for a cartel video, especially considering when it was filmed. It's also somewhat of a good thing that music was blaring in the background, so we couldn't hear the full extent of the sounds being made in this horrible video. So all in all, extremely bloody and extremely graphic. In relation to the group behind this murder, Los Aliados de Jalisco, I'm not sure of their current status. Researching online doesn't bring up much information about this particular group, which does lead me to believe that they no longer exist. But who knows? But one thing's for sure, they certainly left a bloody mark with this video. But anyway, if you guys have any more information on Los Aliados de Jalisco, please feel free to comment below. But nevertheless, I hope you enjoyed this video, if you can enjoy this sort of content, and as always, Thank you guys for the continued support. It really helps keep this channel going. It gives me unlimited motivation to continue this. So thank you guys very much. I do anticipate streaming a bit more in the near future. Maybe some gaming streams where we can talk and chill, maybe play some horror games, things of that nature. That's what I have planned right now. Maybe an Outlast playthrough. That sounds pretty interesting. But I'll keep you updated on that. And yeah, as always, stay safe, and I'll catch you on the next one.